Not bad. Wouldn't work against an ice troll, though. An ice troll? Yeah, have you not heard of them? Very nasty they are. Oh, I've heard of them. I just didn't realise you'd fought one since you so rarely mention it. Now then, if you meet an ice troll, the first thing you want to do is try and scare it off. So we're going to try the Weldstone technique. Look the ice troll directly in the eye and say, "You want some? You want some? Look, you want some, I'll give it to you." Now, if that doesn't work, you're going to have to take the pointy end of your sword and stick it in the ice troll. Stick it in, give it a little twist, pull it out again. And that is what we call a bit of the ice troll treatment.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Recording. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And we finally have some actual ratings numbers for House of the Dragon. I'm sorry, the Rings of Power. We had some data on both the House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power. But considering the source, it was really difficult to kind of get along with because, I mean, it was Amazon saying their show was a huge success, and it was HBO saying their show was a huge success. Meanwhile, HBO is right now has a class action lawsuit claiming that they fudged the numbers, that they cooked the books by users as many as 10 million. Now, obviously, that's only alleged, but it just goes to kind of like, yeah, you know, like the FBI saying we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. You know, it's like, oh, okay. So we actually finally saw Nielsen ratings last night, and it's actually pretty shocking. On top of that, we had a brand new episode of Rings of Power that brought a whole new slew of more criticism. We're going to get all that right after this word from Sheath. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor. That's right, Sheath. These boxers are designed to keep your balls off your legs. Sheath has 3 individual compartments to keep everything down there separate and cool and comfortable. And hey, since they've been a long-time sponsor, I've heard from many of you who have tried out Sheath and really love it. They were invented by a U.S. Army soldier who came up with the idea for Sheath during his second tour in Iraq, where it was hot as heck and his boys needed to breathe. And on top of all sorts of awesome designs for Sheath, they've added all sorts of winter items, hoodies, gator necks, and all sorts of base layers. Head on over to the link in the description and pin comment down below. Use my promo code to save and support the channel and keep everything nice, cool, and dry. I know it's weird to think, like, especially like, you know, about changing what you're wearing, but I think that if you give them a try, you'll actually really like them. And it's super low risk, and they've been a strong sponsor of the channel, so all I can say is give them a try. Now, we saw this article, House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power face off for the first time in Nielsen streaming ratings. The Rings of Power comes out on top, taking the #1 position with 1.3 billion minutes viewed. I mean, that's shocking. Now, again, minutes viewed. So let's do some quick math. 1.3 billion. Okay, so let me see. It's 1.3 million, then another set, 1.3 billion. The episodes are, let's just say, 60 minutes long. Okay. 21 million viewers. 21 million viewers if they watched the entire episode. And it's actually longer than 60 minutes, so it's probably sub 20 million viewers. So, I mean, the articles that, you know, said they had like 25 million viewers, that's just baloney sausage. But more shocking is that it seems like while House of the Dragon is more buzzy according to internet data, it's not even close. We look at the top 10 streaming programs, and this is, now let me break this data down for you because it's not quite the runaway that it might look like. Okay, for example, the #1 SVOD provider, I'm sorry, #1 show with just 2 episodes out. Okay, so 2 episodes were out. So I guess you could say, if we do some like, let's see, let's actually do some math. Episode runtime. So how many minutes were available? If I want to look, does it actually tell me any runtime? I suppose, I mean, they're about an hour. So if we actually take that let's actually do that math again, since there's 2 episodes out. 1.2 billion, right? You can't see this, but I'm doing it. 1.2 billion minutes divided by 120 minutes, which is, that's 10 million. So out of the 120 minutes available, if everyone watched the entire show all the way through, that would be 10 million viewers. Is that math right? Let me know in the comment section down below. What I did was a 1.2 billion total minutes watched divided by the 120 minutes that would exist from the 2 episodes of available minutes, which would equal precisely, almost nearly exactly, well, actually exactly 10 million viewers. Just rough back of the back of the napkin. But then we have Me Time, which I've never even heard of, has nearly 1 billion minutes. NCIS. Here's where you get into some like wacky numbers. NCIS has 354 episodes available, so people could watch 10 in a day, right? So the amount of viewable content for that show, much higher. And here's where you see the original Game of Thrones has more views than the House of the Dragon, which is crazy. But when you think about it, there's 73 episodes. House of the Dragon comes out. People are re-binging the actual Game of Thrones either at the same time or before. And you have, again, 73 hours, let's say each episode's an hour, available. So in one day, you could watch 12 hours of Game of Thrones, but the most you could watch of House of the Dragon is 3 hours. Does that all make sense? So you also then have a bunch of Netflix, Devil in Ohio, Cocomelon, which is pathetic, Grey's Anatomy, which has nearly 400 episodes out there, Stranger Things, still doing well, and Echoes. When you look at the top 10 streaming original programs, basically the numbers are similar, only House of the Dragon falls completely off. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power stays at 1.2 billion. And then you see She-Hulk Attorney at Law with 470 million minutes. So She-Hulk is clearly the number 1 show on Disney, but it's not even close to the number 1 show on TV. Interesting, right? You have movies and things of that nature, but clearly people are watching the Rings of Power, and that is that kind of flies in the face of what we've kind of thought, is that nobody cared about it. 1.2 billion minutes is a lot of time for people to consume worldwide. Now, is it high quality? Well, it doesn't. I mean, you can see this isn't an apples to apples comparison, as the availability of the 2 series don't match up exactly. The Rings of Power debuted with 2 episodes right away, meaning they were streamable for the last 3 days plus a few hours of Nielsen's viewing window. By contrast, House of the Dragon premiered its first episode on the 21st, and its second on 28th, and its third on the 4th, with episode 3 arriving just hours before Nielsen concluded the count for the week. Additionally, it's important to note that The Rings of Power is a streaming exclusive, while House of the Dragon has cable viewership that Nielsen's streaming chart does not account for. So, yeah, there's a big asterisk here, but I mean, let's just say the minutes. Let's just say 10 million people watched all the way through episode 1 and 2 of The Rings of Power. That's shocking, honestly, especially when you read the reviews. You see the Rings of Power ratings are in, and they're good. We finally have some third-party ratings. Nielsen's number come loaded with caveats, though, and comparisons between titles is very tricky. But the data so far suggests many millions of viewers in the U.S. checked out the show with hobbits and fairies and mean, nasty orcs. The running time for the first 2 episodes is 130 minutes. Oh, here you go. So if you divide the 1.253 billion minutes reported, okay, my math was good, by the number, it suggests somewhere in the neighborhood of 9.6 million United States television viewers watched the series during its first few days of release. That's just a guesstimate. Figuring of the actual numbers of viewers, however, is much tougher because Nielsen does look at how many people are watching shows. It reports minutes streamed. Still, nearly 1.3 billion minutes for roughly 2 hours of content makes The Rings of Power the biggest Prime Video series ever on a per episode basis, passing over previous Prime record holder Reacher, which generated 1.8 billion within 3 days with 8 episodes, though, and 400 minutes of content. As far as The Rings of Power did versus House of the Dragon, it's important to note that comparisons between these shows are extremely difficult. Well, what's not difficult is reading, some of these articles from Forbes. The Rings of Power episode 6, not even a battle can save this mess. Oh no, here's from Gizmodo. Everything just went horribly wrong on the Rings of Power. You see, like, it's interesting. Everyone's watching it, but nobody likes it. Much of Rings of Power so far has been a slow burn. Wait for an inevitable clash as Galadriel desperately rallied allies in Numenor to take the fight to the growing forces of evil in the Southlands. But in a ringsier twist, Arondir has rigged... I don't want to give any spoilers. Everything's going to heck. The battle is seemingly over. You see... Let's go to this. I don't want to read any spoilers for you because I know people are still watching the show. Clearly. The Rings of Power episode 6 not even a battle can save this mess. I wanted so badly for the show to be good, but this is neither a good adaptation of Tolkien's work or a good generic fantasy. It's a disaster, plain and simple. Episode 6 might just be the worst yet, in part because we get none of the Harfoots and Mysterious Stranger or the endearing Durin-Elrond friendship, and focus instead on the show's most grating storylines and characters. The Galadriel Numenor plot and the Arondir Bronwyn plot both suck. Finally come galloping together this week, and oh my, is it a hot mess. Before I get into that, let me give credit where credit is due, and let me do that. This is Eric Kane over on Forbes. Adar is a terrific character, and this week made me like him even more. He calls out Galadriel at one point, which earns him a few extra points, but mostly just he's a really fascinating villain, and Joseph Maul's performance is top-notch. Quite frankly, he makes everyone else in the episode look bad. I wish he had a better show to be such a compelling villain in, because he's wasted here. I'll reiterate what I've said a few times before. I'm rooting for the orcs at this point. The closest thing I've come to cheering in this show is the end of this episode when all those smug Numenorians and Queen Smug herself, Galadriel, got caught beneath an erupting volcano. Everything wrong. I won't go through because I don't want to ruin spoilers, right? Galadriel to the rescue. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the 3 Numenorian ships with 300 men, apparently, and 300 horses are all sailing across blah, blah, blah. In any case, Galadriel sucks. I mean, it's just brutal. It really needs to get better. You know, like you see, and who gets to initiate one of the second and epic world-changing events in the Second Age? Not Adar, not Halbrand, it's Waldreg. Are the show's writers high? If not, should they maybe get high? Whatever they're doing, they need to start doing the exact opposite and fast. That's all I know. An episode with an epic battle and eruption of Mount Doom shouldn't be riddled with this many problems. I know many people are willing to shut their brains off to entirely enjoy this show, but I cannot do that. It's just too much. I mean, yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, but clearly people are watching, and millions around the world gave this show a chance, so it better do something. Episode 6 was not a step in the right direction, and I just don't know how much longer people are going to hold on. What's really going to be interesting is when we see the second and third week's Nielsen's data, because that is going to be what's really reportable. Did the numbers go up, or did they come crashing down? That I'm going to be curious to see. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and you click that red subscribe button down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.